Welcome to part 2. We're in Cincinnati, Ohio, Spring Grove Cemetery. We have some graveyard walkers. I see more and more of this as I travel around. This is going to be a good video, so here we go. Throughout Spring Grove Cemetery, they'll have maps like this. This reminds me of shopping malls. Need to get over to area 60, about one-third of the way up. We're on the hunt for a world-renowned individual. I gotta tell you, I forgot what humidity is here in the Midwest. Okay, I think I know where we are. Here we go, Dr. Henry Heimlich, who invents the Heimlich maneuver.
Can you quickly tell us how you came up with this maneuver to save someone from choking?
Well, we have in Cincinnati the Heimlich Institute, which is a nonprofit research institute. We devise many medical things, and we believe that you can solve many seemingly complex problems with direct, simple methods. Now, for example, the Red Cross was teaching for many years that when a person is choking on food, you hit them on the back, you do a back slap, or you put the finger in the throat and try to get the object out. In both instances, the object was being pushed tighter into the throat and causing death when there was a partial obstruction. So the simple solution was, how do you always drive the object away from the lung and toward the mouth? And as a chest surgeon, I knew if you pushed up on the diaphragm and compressed the lungs, it would act like a bellows and blow the object out. And then I had to do some research.
And how did it get famous? How did we all get to know it?
It really got famous by saving lives. There were articles...
You mean you began to teach it and articles appeared about it?
Articles appeared about it, and as a life was saved, it caught the public's imagination.
Would you say that most people know how to do it now?
I would say most people in the world. I've gone to China and seen posters in Chinese. And
certainly restaurant people.
Restaurant people by law in many, many states.
Know how to do it.
They have to know how to do it.
And while we're at it, I want to take a moment and bring a video in a proper way to perform the Heimlich maneuver.
I'm Brianna, and today we are going to discuss the things that you need to know if you find a person choking. This is Choking Charlie, who's going to help me with the demonstration. The universal sign for choking is the hands crossed at the neck. If they are coughing, then they are able to breathe, and you would not perform the Heimlich maneuver on them. In order to do this, you stand behind the person and make a fist with your thumb pointing back against you, midline between the belly button and the rib cage. Grasp that fist with your other hand and pull back and up quickly until the object is expelled or the person loses consciousness and needs to be lowered to the ground to begin CPR.
Please note, Dr. Heimlich does not list the year of death. He lives to age 96. Leave me a comment if you've saved somebody's life using the Heimlich maneuver. I know my friend Cheryl has. Just a little more about Dr. Heimlich. He lived his final years in a senior center, assisted living, if you will. Sure enough, during a Christmas party, a lady sitting next to him was choking. He performs the maneuver he invented and saved her life. True story. Walking up on a grave of Wurlitzer, the piano guy from Germany. I have a Wurlitzer in my house. Rudolph Wurlitzer. A young Rudolph migrates to America and settles in the Cincinnati area, primarily because he liked the Ohio River. By the way, the Ohio River separates Ohio and Kentucky. His first job was working in a grocery store. The owner would let him sleep in the back room, the back stock room. His luck would change when he lands a job at a bank. He earns twice as much money. He's able to save $700, and this was just enough to start a retail store selling drums, trumpets, and bugles. Later, he manufactures his own musical equipment, including pianos and jukeboxes. Also, Wurlitzer jukeboxes are highly sought after by collectors. He's surrounded by family members. Grace dies 1968. More snake hiding areas. Okay, let's keep running moving. Just got off the elevator. Hey, check out this beautiful marble. Really, really nice. We're still at Spring Grove Cemetery. This is the Spring Grove Mausoleum. For our next location, I had to ask for directions, so I had to use my silver bullet. We're looking for a restaurateur, and if you're from the Cincinnati area, you'll instantly know, and here we are right in front of us, you'll instantly know David Frisch. He's the founder of Frisch's Big Boy Restaurants, a franchise chain in 5 states consisting of 120 restaurants. I had to just pull over and stop at a Big Boy, Frisch's Big Boy. This is their mascot. These are all over Cincinnati, Indiana, Kentucky, and probably a few other states. Gonna stop in and grab some breakfast. I'll probably have to turn the camera off. And like most major restaurant chains, you can buy gift cards. In most grocery stores. Here I'm in Dayton, Ohio, heading out to video another cemetery. Although I have investments in Cracker Barrel, I kind of like stopping at Frisch's better. Frisch's was the first restaurant to serve vanilla Coke and cherry Coke to its customers. They switched to Pepsi because they were offered a better deal. But according to Frisch's Facebook, customers threw a fit, so they recently went back to Coke products. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I went to the front office to get directions to David Frisch. I must be looking my age because the front office person asked me if I've made final arrangements for myself and gave me a brochure, and I said, no, not yet. I don't like to think about it, but I did turn 65 recently, and she said, oh, most definitely you need to take this with you and call me. Okay, here we go. As we continue our tour, we're about 30 minutes north of Cincinnati, heading up towards Dayton. But I want to stop by here at Gate of Heaven Cemetery. There's 3 stops we'll make, 3 famous graves, but one grave in particular won't be very popular with the American public. Now that I think about it, I think we have 4 stops here at this memorial park / cemetery. First is Charles Schott. He's a self-made millionaire, owns retail shopping centers, Schott Buick, but we're here to see his wife Marge Schott. She inherits the shopping centers, Schott Buick. She also buys majority interest into the Cincinnati Reds. She has $12 million in cash. She buys controlling interest of the Cincinnati Reds. They end up winning the World Series 1990. Oh, by the way, I'm a Reds fan. That was happy times for me, October 1990. Marge is also a very controversial figure.
It was practically the night before Christmas, 4 years ago. You went and bought yourself a baseball team. Why?
I just kept waiting for one of the guys to step up, and I waited and waited. And you know, around Christmas time, how women do, they go out and buy everything as they charge it, right? I think that might have been one of the reasons. It was probably the worst business decision anybody could have ever made. I bought it with my heart. It was a decision of the heart.
60-year-old Margaret Univers Schott, a woman renowned for taking up hobbies and dropping them, really paid for this one. $12 million of her own money for a controlling interest in the Reds.
Everybody wants to be a winner, you know. And I guess an ambition of every owner, I know it's my ambition, is to win a World Series so I can have one of those big rings like all the men in baseball have. Is this a girl bat boy or a boy that needs a goddamn haircut?
Well, Marge, it's a question you ought to take up with the young person itself.
You got it. Is that a boy or a girl?
It's a young man with a modern haircut.
He'll never be out here again with long hair sitting like that.
All right.
I'm serious. Hey, if my players
What if a player wanted to grow a mustache or a beard on your team? What do you got against facial hair trimmed and neat?
Hey, look.
And
I am for the clean. It's our tradition in Cincinnati. It's going to remain that way.
No one in Cincinnati's ever had a mustache?
No. Well,
So much for William Howard Taft.
Maybe 100 years ago.
Oh, well.
I know you have one, boy, but that's okay. You're from Yale.
Marge, you're killing me. The gentleman sitting next to Marge is the commissioner of baseball, Bart Giamatti. He's also the commissioner who bans Pete Rose for life for betting on baseball. We have another Cincinnati Reds baseball connection. We're coming up on the location of a legendary Reds player and batting coach for the Reds. He coached the likes of Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, many others. This is a grave location of Ted Kluszewski.
Raymond, Ted Kluszewski.
Kluszewski. Ted Kluszewski. Big Clue, first base.
He played for Cincinnati?
Of course, he was traded for Defundy, 1957. Lifetime batting average, 298.
Great books. He reads,
big
huh?
Clue.
Reads and remembers whatever he gets his hands on.
Ted was a two-sport athlete while attending college in Indiana. He plays baseball, of course, but he also did very well playing tight end on a college football team. Many say he had the size and speed to make it into the NFL. Ted's also popular around the Cincinnati area. He had a few steakhouses. A little cooler in here. We have a humid Cincinnati day. I recognize towards the back our next famous grave stop would be an NFL quarterback. This would be a quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a resting place of John Stofa.
Well, the first ever Cincinnati Bengals player, quarterback John Stofa, died this weekend at the age of 79. Known as the original Bengal, he was traded to Cincinnati by the Dolphins back in 1967. And of course, my question was, how do you make a trade when you don't have any players to trade? Well, Paul Brown traded away two of the Bengals' expansion draft picks in exchange for Stofa, who ended up being the only player on the team for about a month or so. I talked to the Bengals Fan of the Year this weekend, Bengal Jim, about the legacy left behind here in Cincinnati by John Stofa.
They literally started from scratch. So when Paul Brown is looking for players, and Paul Brown, a legend Hall of Famer Paul Brown, finds you, that's special. I mean, Paul Brown selected him as the first person ever on this roster. That's just an amazing thing to me.
You know, I was actually at the game when he honored John Stofa. He was wearing number 50, which represented the 50th year of the Cincinnati Bengals. When a fan was talking, referring to Paul Brown, all that's so true. It was Paul Brown that invented the face mask, the microphone in the quarterback's helmet. It was also Paul Brown's idea to hire assistant coaches full-time. Well, I finally found our next location. Thanks to Ken for putting up this picture online on Find a Grave. Helped out a lot in finding our next location. This is the final resting place of Charles Keating Jr. He works as a lawyer, real estate developer, and a banker. He was convicted in the late 1980s, I think it was 1989, for his role in the savings and loan scandal. I'm sure many people remember. Keaton runs Lincoln Savings Loan. It actually began to fail in the mid-'80s, so he comes up with the idea. He sells junk bonds to the American public. He ends up getting convicted for wire fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. He serves 4 years in prison. Later in 1996, everything's overturned. They negotiated a deal in 1999. He pleads guilty to wire fraud, and he's given credit for his time served. It costs the federal government $3 billion to reimburse 23,000 customers. He spends his final years keeping a low profile while working in the Cincinnati area in real estate. I'm doing a voiceover throwing this in. I'm walking right past the grave of Paul Dixon. I didn't know he's here. He was also a Cincinnati television personality. As we continue our Midwest tour, we're a little more north of Cincinnati, heading up to Dayton. Want to stop by and visit a location here, Hollywood Starlet, I've been trying to find for years. As we head into Oak Hill Cemetery, we'll visit the grave of a Hollywood starlet. Thank you, Jill, for sending me this picture, also for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for the support. This is a grave of Peg Entwistle. She's a Hollywood sign girl. The story is that one afternoon, she told her roommate that she's going for a walk to the drugstore, makes her way over to the Hollywood sign, climbs atop the H, unalives herself. I have to use that word because with YouTube, you cannot use the S word. A little later, a hiker finds her purse and her shoes. Inside her purse, she leaves a note. Sad, sad story. Here's a snippet of Peg in a movie. She's the one on the right with the blonde hair.
What's the matter? What's happened? Do you remember that round-robin letter we all sent each other?
Yeah.
Well, in that letter, one of the girls mentioned how miraculous some swami in New York was in predicting what was going to happen to us.
So you sent for your horoscope.
My brother Donnie recently reminded me that the day after Peg dies, she receives a letter in the mail offering her another movie role. How about that? I'm very happy the way this Midwest tour is going. I planned it out well and everything's falling right in order. We're now in Hamilton, Ohio. We're turning into Rose Hill Cemetery, where we'll pay our respects to another Cincinnati Red. We're walking up on a grave of Joe Nuxhall. He was a radio announcer. Also, he pitched for the Reds. I remember attending Reds games, and Joe Nuxhall is pitching batting practice when he's well up into his 60s. I also remember living in Lafayette, Indiana, laying on the couch, listening to Al Michaels and Joe Nuxhall call the games. Later, it was Joe Nuxhall and Marty Brenneman.
For over 60 years, he's been the ambassador of Cincinnati Reds baseball.
That's it right there.
From the fresh-faced 15-year-old on the mound, to the radio booth above the field, to the statue in front of Great American Ballpark, Joe Nuxhall transcended baseball to become one of the most beloved characters in Cincinnati history, and perhaps the biggest Reds fan ever.
The Reds are going to win. You know, I tell you, I'm an eternal optimist. There's no question about that. I think they're going to win a pennant every year.
In 1944, Joe signed with the Reds while he was still attending high school in Hamilton. He appeared in one game at the age of 15, making him the youngest player ever in Major League Baseball.
Joe would end every Reds broadcast with, "This is the old left-hander rounding third and heading home." So I'm rounding third and heading to Dayton. Everybody needs to be remembered. Let's keep going.